Yeah, so that's what we're focusing on today. We'll start off with that one with Mr. Dennis Amakre, former operative of the SSS. Good morning, and thank you for coming on again today. Well, lots of reactions already about some of the testaments, the testimony of some of those who appeared before the panel. But the security component is key here, particularly that of Lekki. So many just raising, wondering, already extrapolating, thinking, okay, with these kind of submissions, something, what can we ever get from this now if this is going this way? But, the way these things turn is that most times or sometimes, people may not get to hear what they want to hear. And the other people who are coming will have to say what they have to say.
Yes.
But then, for those who are already making some sort of conclusions, drawing conclusions from some of these, let's hear your perspective, particularly when you heard how the operations of the cameras, the functions of the Lekki toll, the cameras, what struck you when you heard that narrative?
When I, in fact, saw what happened there, I knew that some protocols were not followed. Because apparently...
protocols?
Yeah, protocol. The crime scene was not secured. In fact, before people even knew what was happening, the whole crime scene was contaminated. Contaminated in the sense that some of the evidences that are supposed to be around on ground there has been swept away, tampered with, so you couldn't see much. And now we're hearing that cameras have stopped working at a particular time. When did it start to work and stuff like that? I think the panel could just go ahead and get some forensic experts who can look into this, clinically.
But who should have secured that crime scene, as you call it?
You see, that's another thing. The environment or the situation didn't allow for...
Yeah, it was difficult to secure that kind of
because the people that are supposed to secure it, the police, were away.
Yeah, but how do you secure it when there's regular... Look at the massive movement that occurs there on a daily basis.
Yeah, but if they really want to secure it, and by the time everybody left, they would have cordoned off the place. Cordoned off the place. Cars should not be moving through. And then, of course, the forensic scientists will come and, pick through all that is going on. We've heard about bullets, different kinds of bullets. We want to see which kind of bullets they are. Are they silver bullets or are they brass bullets, or which caliber, of bullets are they? And all those kind of things should have been evidences.
Forgive me for this
that were lacking. Yeah.
So, what does it imply for you or to you that we didn't cordon off that crime scene? What does it imply?
It implies that we were not ready. In fact, the investigation was an afterthought. But because if any time there is a problem, if we know that it is going to be investigated, then the investigators need to move in and then, of course, cordon off the area. Because there's a lot of evidence. Let me give you a very good one. Bola Ige. When he was shot, a lot of people didn't even think that there should be an investigation. They've killed him, so he's dead. By the time the forensic people came in there, the whole place was totally, when I mean contaminated, that means the people have tampered with the evidence, and people crying and moving around, and, every fingerprints are all over the place. We cannot actually look into it.
So what are we likely to get from this judicial panel?
Well, they will do the best under the circumstance. There are apparent evidences that could be dealt with, like who invited the military, who shot, how many people died, and all those kind of things you can do. But when you come to nitty-gritty evidence, like where are the bullets, where do they come from? Because a very good lawyer can go into defend that these are not our bullets, stuff like that.
The panel still has a very long way to go.
Yes.
And there'll still be so many depositions, as it were. But, you know, there have been several visits to that place by different officials.
Yeah.
And then when they speak about the cameras, when they stopped recording, why they stopped recording, circumstances surrounding why they stopped recording, which is already generating a lot of comments. Many just question and find loopholes in all of those things because they wonder, look, the place is usually normally lit. And curfew or not, they said, look, they've gone there several times, even during the curfew, during the lockdown, it was still lit.
Yes.
And they wonder why this particular case was so.
Yes, there could be an ulterior motive by whoever owns or manages that toll gate, because that's why I need forensic experts to go in there.
When? Before or even
right now, they'll look at it. The recordings, do they stop at a particular time all the time, or was it a network, or on this particular day was the day it stopped at 8 o'clock? You know, we want to know. We want to even know about other recordings when the thing was going on.
So that means they will have to access the previous log of those areas to see how have they been doing all of these things before now.
Yes.
To then compare it with that particular circumstance.
To know exactly, what is the system of recordings, what are old recordings, what did they record during the protest, how did it go on, were they really peaceful? You know, all these recordings should be able to tell us, you know. Those are hard evidence.
But, you know, the time that the ministers visited the area and the cameras that the Minister of Works, you know, saw there was another camera, which I think, was it on a stick or something? I'm not too sure how that was. It was just right on the roof, you know, just like it was detached.
Yes.
Just seemingly, you will notice that, wait a minute, this cannot be a structured way the camera fits.
Yeah.
So that, all of those circumstances, you then wonder, are they supposed to make all those materials available to the panel?
They should. In fact, I don't know who is in charge of the investigation for the panel, because these people should be going around and getting evidence for the panel to look at. How many cameras are actually there? Which ones are the overseeing cameras? You know, there are other hotels like Sheraton, Oriental, you know, and they should be overlooking that area. So, what do they have on those cameras?
So it can be admissible?
Oh, yeah, definitely, if they do it. Now, some might not be admissible because after so many days we saw a camcorder just in plain view. You know, are they saying that that camera was there and nobody knew about the presence of that camera? It was in plain view and it was there, and then the minister went and removed it, you know.
I many wonder, so many people have passed through there.
Yes.
So where was that?
Who planted it? That's what we want to know. Who planted it? Yeah, it was planted. Because there is no way. You know, I know that there are even...
Please say that clearly. What are you saying happened with the camcorder that the Minister of Works...
That camcorder looks planted. Because there is no way that it will be in plain view. Plain view. Not that it was hidden. It was in plain view in one of the... you know, the booths had some platforms. One of the platforms there, from what they showed on TV. So, how come it was there and nobody saw it? There are mobile phone service providers that even went there to look at their lines.
Some of them were damaged.
Yeah, that were damaged. Nobody saw that camera, that particular camcorder. And it is not so tiny. It is not, you know, we have these hidden cameras where people will not know that they were there.
Could it have fallen from somewhere?
I don't know. But I think I am very interested in that camera.
Okay.
Because I want to see what is in it. Whoever planted there must have also loaded it with something. So, you know, those are the kinds of things that the investigation
so that means
should give
whatever
us.
is in that camera could tilt, as you see there now, it
must
could
have
tilt
it must
the
have
narrative.
been designed to tilt. It must have been designed to tilt.
Look at how it was in plain sight.
Yes, it's in plain sight. And then, of course, look at the minister, I think, brought an handkerchief to pick it up. That means is trying to preserve the fingerprint on that camera. We want to know whose fingerprint is that right there. And then we want to know what is in that camera. That way we will at least...
So that's the kind of forensic picking up that you're
These
suggesting.
are the kinds of things that we're talking about.
But we have equally seen different narratives from different government officials about whether or not they were real. I mean, I think the narrative we were reading up yesterday suggested, well, I think it was the Minister of Justice, and there was reported to have said, you're not exactly sure what could have happened. You could have had miscreants or people who paraded themselves in that army uniform. They could have been the ones who were shooting. You never know who actually did what. So when you get to hear that kind of narrative, and then you hear from several other authorities, so does it suggest that you may not get the kind of cooperation you ordinarily would require, and as such, the recommendations there may just not be predicated in good stead?
Well, you know, that's why we still need forensic scientists, you know, because, for instance, if the people that were there were in fake army uniforms, it's very possible in this country. They were in fake, we are supposing now, they're in fake army uniforms and they shot some guns. Right, okay. Now, some bullet cases were discovered. You know, the common one of the major arms that is used in society here is AK-47. That's 9mm. Now, when you go down to the kind of cases that were found there, we have about 7.62, you know, rifle cartridge, you know, casing that was there. And those ones are specifically military. They are military grade. So, if people were wearing fake uniform, how do they come about the military grade bullets, you know? And then, of course, if they have different colors, some might be blank, some might be, you know, real life bullets and everything. These are the things that forensic will tell us.
What does that suggest then? The kind of narrative that we get from government officials, including the military, what is that suggesting? Is that suggesting that, you know, people are not likely to get the kind of justice that they deserve? Because if it's already in the conjecture, in the realm of conjecture, you know, that is coming from government officials, it is presupposing then that no matter what judgment anyone draws, there may be no justice.
No, the thing is that the composition of the judicial panel is top class. It involves everybody, including some protesters, some human rights lawyers, you know, and of course, government people, former DIG. So all these people are going to sit down and come up with the judgment of what actually happened.
But you're also aware that there is a report that members of this panel paid an unscheduled visit to the military morgue, and you know they weren't allowed to see the morgue.
I learned they were allowed later.
Allowed into the facility, but not to the morgue.
Yeah, but they are seeking for evidence of either dead bodies, or stuff like that. So if they don't allow them, they can go over the heads of these guys. You know, go to either their commander or go to the president. He sanctioned this particular panel, and he's the commander-in-chief. So if there are some people trying to throw hitches in the investigation, they can go to him and they will get direct order to allow the panel to go freely to seek for whatever they want to seek.
If that's the kind of body language the judicial panel has already gotten, someone somewhere might be assuming that maybe there could be some tampering with evidence, if we want to call it that. Do you see that happening?
Normally, the evidence, like I told you, in this particular investigation, a lot of evidence has been tampered with because You know, even the dead bodies, if there were dead bodies, should have been left there so that we can see them, know who they are, identify them properly.
Yeah, but you can't leave it there for that long. You could just mark those spaces and take those pictures and images.
Yeah, and they will first of all do that and then take them away. But everything was just removed.
But you know, about those weaponry, which you spoke about, how do we say for sure that they're military grade? Because shouldn't, as you suggested, shouldn't we have some sort of forensic examination to determine whether or not they are the, I think they say 7.62 mm. I think whether or not is it NATO they use for GPMG, which they don't use that much anymore, or is it the one for the Kalashnikov? How do they determine which grade is this?
It's by size. And then, of course, you know, when you fire it, depending on the
proximity,
the gun that you are using, you know, that will tell you which kind of the bullet that you can use for it. You cannot use, for instance, double barrel cartridge for AK-47. So these are the different levels. So if they take the bullets, they will know exactly which kind of gun they came from. And then, of course, if they go further, forensic examination could also show us the signature. Because any bullet you fire out have a signature, you know, of the weapon that fired it.
So you could tell us
if this is military. This is military grade, and this was fired from a particular arm, rifle, and
the lot number, all of those,
and all that kinds of things, and then it will also tell us who owns those kind of weapons.
Well, there's still on this weapons thing. There is also, of course, you said it as well. If there are dead bodies, there are those who feel that look, maybe there is also the issue of the range of the guns, and because the people are already too far away, and their range is probably that at which the velocity of the speed begins to drop, and which is deadlier at the time that the bullets are dropping.
Yeah, well, you know, if there's a sniper, for instance, who is far away, maybe somebody who is sitting down up on the roof of the Oriental Hotel, looking down on the crowd there and then sniping down there, you know, that will also tell us about the range of whatever. But 7.62 it can go a long way, you know. 9mm pistol, you know, very close range, but those ones can go a very long range.
So, judging by the allegations of the distance between where the alleged soldiers are and the place where the protesters were, there's that possibility.
No, it's not even a matter of where the soldiers were. Okay. Because if you look at the videos, you find out that the soldiers were right there with them. It's not
close or far.
Oh, right there. If you look at the video, you will see that they were right there. The people in uniform, you know, were right in front. There's just a barricade in front of them. So that it's not that they were far away shooting into the crowd, no.
But equally, whether or not they fired blanks, as some may have said, they could have been blanks. They could have shot into the air. What do you make of those kind of information?
Well, if you are actually going for crowd control, you know, you have to use blanks or water cannons or whatever you want to use. When you start to use live bullets, then your mission is different.
Because those ones you saw, were they blanks?
No. There are two kinds. The silver ones might be blanks, and then the brass ones could be pure live bullets.
So there could be an admixture?
Yeah, there could be a mixture.
For that to happen, shouldn't there be a signal?
Signal of what?
In terms of, for officers or men to leave and go for that kind of mission.
That's why we're saying, see, that's why we're saying that the military don't move without the knowledge of their commanders. They are under command. Okay? So, like the first one, the first time this thing came up, when the news broke, the military said they were not the ones. Later, they said they were the ones, but they were directed by Lagos State government. You know, so...
Is that possible?
Oh, very possible. Now, get this. Get this. You know, all commands come from the chief of staff, CNC. And they will say, look, there is a problem. And then, of course, the chief of army staff will say, okay, I've got directives from the president, and then we're going to do this. So you go do it, okay? The governor, the governor cannot directly call the brigade commander and say, please go and quell this for me. He has to talk to the authority of the military, and it's from there it will come, you know. So even when you say, okay, bring the military, you know, they said, bring the soldiers, let's talk to them. And they said, no, we can't do that, because that's not the protocol. If there are military people that were involved, or even policemen, they have to be tried in an ugly room trial. After they finish that, if they are found guilty, and if what they've committed was a criminal offense, then they will be sent into a judicial panel which might sentence them to jail, you know. So you cannot just call them to come out of their barracks and talk to them. That protocol does not exist.
What should we expect from, because the army authorities too said they were investigating.
Yes.
What should we expect from them?
That's what I'm saying. If they're investigating, actually the command or what the brief to go out there to do whatever happened might have been different. So they will say, okay, we just told you to go and quell this. How come people died? You know, you have to explain, you know.
But so, that's not the only place. Lagos is not the only place that this happened, you know.
Well, you know, this is a case in point that we're looking at right now. For others that happened across the country,
especially Rivers.
Well, in Rivers, it's a different story altogether. There was an illegal body that was trying to, you know, assert themselves, and then, of course, they were asked to be wiped out. In their annoyance, they went and burned down police stations, even killed some policemen, you know, which was very, very terrible. And, of course, the governor is on top of it. I think they're looking for those people with a bounty on their heads.
Well, there's going to be, because, I mean, that controversy about the army saying we were there on the authority of the Lagos State governor, and then if they were there, so those bullets, where did it come from? Who issued that directive for them to open fire as a result of the bullets, which we saw, if that was what happened?
That is what the investigations will bring out, yes.
But can this panel do the job? That investigation you're talking about? If
No.
forensics?
Like I said, you know, you don't bring out military people and interrogate or investigate them openly.
By this panel?
By anybody, even a court of law. When military people, because they're under command and control, when military people or police, or even in the DSS, if they commit anything, there's an in-house court. You know, in the military, they call them court martials or whatever. Bring them there and judge them. And if they are found guilty, and what they did was criminal, then after being found guilty by the military authority, they will send them to the judicial panel, which will also sentence them to jail.
So, in other words, if any of such thing was going to happen, should they wait for all these judicial panels to finish their job in 6 months before they start?
No, the military is going on if they are investigating.
But government says they're going to have to wait for this panel. I think Mr. Additional said something.
And when they
like
finish, they will now transfer the case over.
So, it's going to be a long wait.
It already is a long wait.
Given how much time the panel has to do a job. So we'll watch and see what happens. Thank you very much indeed for coming on. This is Dennis Amakere. Well, back in a moment. Stay with us. All right, so joining us to weigh in on what you just watched, we've got Usman Alhaji, who is the Secretary to the Kano State Government, joining us from our studios in Abuja. Good morning, and thank you for, I beg your pardon, studios in Kano. Good morning, and thank you for joining us today on the program. Well, there's been a lot of reactions concerning that particular meeting by northern leaders. Of course, expected there will be mixed reactions concerning almost any issue these days, as it were. But haven't those who think that, wait a minute, are they on the same page with youths in the country? For instance, we reports this morning, as we did review some of the dailies, indicate that Arewa youths kick against restriction of social media. Does that suggest that well, the thinking of the youths and the leaders kind of differ on what happened in the last couple of weeks?
Well, let me start by saying good morning, everyone. You heard really what some of the leaders who attended the meeting said, and some of the issues that were considered. In the first place, this, of course, is not the first time the leaders in the North got together and look at the security situation. Of course, the North has experienced a number and for quite some time, a lot of insecurity in different forms. But I believe the last Stop SARS demonstration was perhaps a louder wake-up call for all of us. We thank God that a lot of the states in the North were spared, you know, the wrath, probably the worst of the demonstrations, and that has really given us the leeway to know what was the who were the main players, and it turned out, of course, to be the youth. And that is why I think the focus of the discussion and looking at how best to ensure this doesn't happen again, and especially it doesn't go, you know, worse than what we have witnessed. A lot of discussions were centered on the issue of youth, how to engage them, how to make sure they are gainfully employed. I am fully aware that because of the insurgency, this idea has already, you know, been adopted by many of the states in the North, particularly the one I know most and the best is my state, Kano. And I know that a lot of engagement of the youth had already, you know, taken place. We had done a lot of empowerment, I think, within the last 2-3 years. Over 1 million young men and women in Kano State were engaged in one form of empowerment or another, sometimes even training. Some were even sponsored to go to the PAN in Kaduna, where they make a Peugeot automobile, where they learned to become mechanics in various ways, painters and so on. And coming back from that training, the government created a garage, you know, repair garage for them, putting all the disciplines together and form one kind of garage or another. Of course, in the state, as I said, there is what we established, the integrated skill acquisition center, which was completed by the state government, you know, expanding a lot of funds, over, I think, 3 billion to establish it. And it is now named Aliko Dangote Skill Acquisition Center, with about 20 different skills to be learned by our young men and women, so that they can be engaged and be gainfully, you know, used, instead of allowing them, you know, with little or no options, but to fall prey to such, you know, demonstrations, which really does nobody any good.
Okay, but some of the narratives out there, as published and read, even the ones we looked at this morning, they suggest that it appears as though there's a huge thinking, perhaps in some parts of the North, that they don't seem to understand the kind of experience that those who were protesting about SARS went through. And when they then saw it as politically motivated, many thought that that might have been off the mark. Could you explain the thinking behind that sort of narrative, which some in South think that some up North actually thought that the protest was politically motivated and not actually to address the brutality meted out to them by the defunct SARS?
Well, let me begin by honestly saying, when this matter, started, our effort in Kano was swift and quick. We summoned the leaders of various groups living in Kano, leaders, of community, and we sat, and after discussing, you may say that we discovered many of our youth don't even know what is SARS at that time, because probably, I don't know, the operations have not been perhaps as bad as it is probably elsewhere. I'm talking now about Kano, not northern states, but I know that in Kano, we didn't have a lot of incidents that about, the cruelty or of SARS. So for our young men, honestly, they genuinely perhaps didn't realize or appreciate what the other people in other states and other parts of Nigeria are saying or are doing. Probably that might have been the reason why, Kano State and a lot of perhaps other northern states were spared of this. Now, the issue now becomes when it is concentrated, on a particular part of the country, and then the insinuation, what is the the main cause, the main reason. So on one hand, they don't have, a lot of experience to build on or to rely upon, and therefore join. And on the other, they get this feeling that, well, maybe there may be some ulterior motives behind this demonstration. Of course, we know how destructive it can be. And in Kano in particular, I know day in, day out, night after night, we had meeting with all the segments of society, businessmen, particularly young men. Initially, the morning, the demonstration started, we invited all the youth leaders in Sabongari and all other parts of Kano State. We sat with them, with the governor, chairing, and we spoke as usual, called on them to appreciate that destruction doesn't help. These are properties, belonging to people and to the people of the state, and on and on. And then
pardon me to jump in. Before the destruction of property, when the protest started, everybody saw that there wasn't any of such that went on. So if there were those who didn't understand it, because I like to believe, I don't think it was only in Kano that people didn't understand the protest. There were even some in the South who didn't understand the protest, but they didn't organize or get people to protest saying, we want SARS. So what a neutral person would have thought to see is that if people didn't understand, they should find out why is this going on, as opposed to, because the images we saw that came through from Kano was that there were a group of people who protested saying, we want SARS, and then the governor received them, and that suggested as though it was sponsored crowd, because yesterday one of our guests did actually say that those crowds were sponsored. So many thought, should that have happened, or should they have said, okay, look, what is the problem here? If it's really about police brutality, then it should be addressed, as opposed to saying group of people who, if they didn't understand, why would you then say we want SARS?
Let me correct this, because I was there. Okay. I was there when the youth came, and I was there when the governor, Dr. Abdullah Umar Ganduji, addressed them. I heard what they said. So I'm not talking from hearsay. I'm talking from, eyewitness. When these young men, you'll be surprised, a lot of them, of course, from various institutions, leaders, of various youth organizations. We were then in a council meeting when the Commissioner of Youth and Sports informed His Excellency and the council meeting that he was in contact with some young men that want to come and present their position to His Excellency. And when they came, what they said, because they spoke first, they said, yes, they know that something can be wrong with the SARS, but the issue of proscribing them and, dealing with no police that will take care of that aspect where which SARS deals with, they said no. This country, everybody needs security. Without police force, nobody can exist. Nobody can, perform their legitimate businesses. And they suggested that there should be reform. And they are not, they are not supporting the disbandment of SARS, but to be reformed. And we all know that is quite correct. There is no nation, no country, no society really can exist and live peacefully without someone that, makes sure, everybody lives peacefully. So the police do that. That's their job. And then, of course, in response, His Excellency appreciated them. He said, well, you understand what it is, of course, to be safe and go about your daily businesses, unharassed and unhindered. So he appreciated what they did and requested them to be peaceful and to make sure that they don't go on rampage, they don't do anything that would destabilize the state. You know that Kano State, we thank God, is perhaps one of, if not the most peaceful state in the country, and of course the most populated, which is, another contradiction. Where there are too many people, you are likely to have a lot of youth, restiveness and lack of peace. But through efforts and deliberate, steps taken by the government, we thank God Kano State today is adjudged the most peaceful state. That's what happened. They were not against putting the police in the right position to do their job. They are only saying that, no, don't disband them and then have nothing in their place.
Okay. Well, Alhaji, perhaps, I don't know if the family of Saifullah, a 17-year-old in Kano who died in police custody, would say the same thing that you're saying now, because it's as a result of his death in police custody that violence, according to the Amnesty International, broke around Kofa Mata area. And as a result of that, the protesters barricaded the main road, Kofa Mata Road, and set tires on fire and chanting songs calling for an end to police brutality in Kano. So those who say that some protesters, some pro-SARS people, just as you said, that came to the governor were paid, might have good reason to say that. Because from this report, it is clear that indeed there were people in Kano who were not in support of SARS. So how do you address that end as well, where in case, in actual fact, there are people in Kano who have also suffered, badly in the hands of police, especially SARS in this case?
Well, I'm not I'm not in any way saying that people or anybody in Kano had not had any brush with SARS before. In fact, we are also preparing to set up a commission of inquiry to look at all of this, and the facts will be there. And if, as anybody says, the brutality in Kano is there, it will be there on the table. But let me also say that, of course, in Kano, we have a standard of holding our state security meetings monthly, which goes a long way towards stabilizing and ensuring peace in Kano. We don't wait until an issue comes up before we call for security meeting. Every month we have a security meeting. We have also other structures on the security arrangement.
Just one moment. On that, since these security meetings hold monthly, were there hitherto any reports of police brutality in Kano that the government did or did not address before these EndSARS protests broke?
Well, you see, a security meeting really will not be a venue where these things will be discussed. That is why we thought the establishment of the committee to look at all of these possible brutality, as you.
But are you aware? Are you aware of any such cases arising among the police and the citizens? Because I would expect, or rather, I would imagine that there were police community relations committees in Kano as well that may have brought these things to the fore. Because if those were there and those reports were brought to the attention of the chief security officer of the state in the person of the governor, someone like you would be aware and those issues wouldn't have degenerated so badly.
Well, let me quickly really repeat what His Excellency, the Governor of Kaduna State, just said, at the end of that meeting, that we agree, we appreciate the fact that in every group of people, there are some bad ones, and we are not contesting the fact that within the police force, whether it's SARS or any other, you can have few bad eggs. You can have bad eggs, and that does not really say that each and every one of them is bad. Let me quickly, you spoke about a young man whom you said died in Kano. That's why I started with the issue of security meeting. I was going to say on that particular, days of the protest, we held continuous security, state security meeting, and in the meeting we were briefed about really what happened about the young man. The police, the commissioner of police clearly told us what happened, and because yes, you are right, there were some people who wanted really to do the demonstration. There are those who say no, we don't want a demonstration because it can cause mayhem in Kano, and there was some little clash between one group and the other in Kano. If anything, that was the issue about burning tires and so on. But let me quickly tell you that when we put our security network, in action, we were able to call to government house to summon to receive those who confess to be the leaders of the EndSARS protests in Kano State, and I can tell you it's a mixture. One of the I think 7, 8 of the leaders, young men, is from Kano. That is a fact. But there are 3 others that say they were from Imo State. Another 2, I think, from Anambra. And we sat with them, with the governor, and we spoke. Look, in Kano, this is what we have, this is what we want. And this young man accepted and said, well, we promise you from now on, this end SARS protest will end in Kano. And that is exactly what happened. So when you went back, when I go back to what you said initially about thinking of some political motive and so on, probably, because when you look at the way, you know, in Kano we try to deal with the matter, most of the people that were there to help, to assist, to stop the end SARS demonstration in Kano are mostly leaders. There is Sarki, you know, Sarki means the chief of Igbo, the chief of Yorubas, Edo, and a number of the community leaders who were summoned, and we formed, the governor quickly formed what we call peace committee, and we have these young men join these leaders, and that was how we were able to overcome it.
All right, Alajusman, we'll come back to just get your concluding thoughts about one or two matters in just a moment. Join us again. All right, welcome back. So, Alajusman, could you tell us, what is Kano State government's thinking about the question of state police?
Well, I think, let me repeat what, again, the governor, His Excellency, the governor of Kaduna State said. This is, of course, a national issue. It's a constitutional matter, and I'm sure when it is brought up and is being discussed, then clear views about it. But let me say that in Kano State, we are able to maintain the peace, you know, in a very miraculous way, because, as I said, it's a very populated state with many young men and women, and that is, of course, a breeding place for crime. We are able to do that by setting up various, you know, arrangements, elaborate, to ensure that our arrangement goes right down to the village level, and then we make sure also everybody is involved. As we agree, we feel that security matter is everybody's business. Okay, I'm coming to that, yeah.
Okay, because I mean that in part of that recommendation as well was the insecurity challenge across the country, up north as well, the challenge of Almajiri. So many will wonder, maybe you'll even speak to it now, will Kano State government support state police when it's being debated?
Well, I believe this is, as I said, you are asking me, but I believe that Kano State has been working a lot and believe me, in earnest, to establish structures that would maintain peace, you know, in Kano State. Presently, we have the Kano State Transport Agency, the Karota, which are more or less performing a lot of the probable roles that normally police perform.
You know, in addition to that one that you just mentioned now, they also say Kano State equally has Hisba. You have several other agencies who are performing a type of policing function or the other. So the question is, why are we going around in circles in all of this matter when everyone can clearly see that each state has one agency or outfit or the other performing some sort of policing function? Why do they then address it that this state police question should be debated once and for all?
Well, what you are asking me, really, as I said, is a state matter. For me to just make the statement and say that Kano State will take police or will not take state police, you see, the issue, we are not there yet. But I am telling you why, excuse me, why I feel it will not be a new or strange thing to Kano State. And that's why I started telling you about the Karota, about other community policing arrangement we have, where all our traditional rulers are involved, and the reporting system has already been established in Kano, where the local government council chairman report to me, the SSG, where the police divisional officer reports to commissioner of police and DSS to. So we have already established a system in Kano where we know every day who comes in, who goes out, who buys a land in our remotest part of the state, and so police, state policing for us is something that is going to only complement, because as I said, the decision has to be made. We have not made it yet, so for me to say we have made it, that will be in error. So I want to say that we are taking steps to ensure that Kano remains, you know, peaceful and with security. So if state police is something that adds to it, that will be a matter of decision of government, of national position, and then of course Kano state will adopt it.
All right, so as we wind down now, could you tell us, will the state support censoring social media?
Well, let me tell you, it is not even a matter of SARS and the SARS protest. Before even then, it is a fact that state government has discussed in no small detail the pros and cons of social media, and of course it is very, very prevalent and spread wide in Kano state, and we have seen, well, the good and the bad of it, and we are saying yes, there should be a reasonable, you know, level of control. I don't think it is in Kano or in Nigeria, all over the world, this is what is happening. I know many countries that regulate the activities of social media because of its adverse effect on some, you know, cases, in some aspects. So I believe, yes, we will do it to a level that will not touch, will not hinder on any freedom of expression of anybody, you know, in the state if the matter comes up. But I want to say to you that yes, the need to definitely regulate and make sure it is decently, rightly done with that. Because one right of one individual, that is the one who uses the media, stops where the right of another individual starts, who probably get maligned or whatever by the use of the media. So I think it's a balance between those who want to express themselves and who want to have justice done to themselves.
It might be you or the government against the youth in that in your state or in the north generally, who are the ones that use social media the most, because from what we hear in the papers, as my colleague quoted earlier, they say the youths, the Arewa Youths for Development and Progress, say that any plan to regulate or, you know, censor the social media is for them a plan to keep the North and the country under perpetual subjugation. This is what they think. If you go on, what do you think the repercussion will be?
Well, I don't know whether someone is in a position to really tell us what is good for us, what is not bad, what is bad for us, except ourselves. I know that this government under Dr. Abdullahi Umar Ganduje has engaged virtually every sector of our society, and that is why at any given time, if the government invites anybody, which has not been, the same, in the past years, today the people are carried along, they respect, the government, they accept invitations. We've been engaging these young men. You will be surprised to know that many of these young men are the architects of this statement I made, that yes, everyone has a right. The media people, the social media people have their right, and also the person who doesn't use it or who is affected by it also has a right. So I'm not talking from only government views or side. I'm talking about the engagement we had with these young men and the people of Kano State, who believe that yes, there should be some level of decency, some level of ensuring everybody, has his own interest and right protected. I think that's what I'm saying.
All right. Well, I don't know how brief you can make this, but I would really love it if you could make it brief. A number of issues as far as insecurity is concerned, many have attributed to unemployment and poverty. And according to a report in the Geographies of Poverty in Kano State, the report says that Kano is that 98% of households in Kano North falls below poverty line, while only 97.1% in the Kano South and 86.9% in Kano Central fall below the poverty threshold. In this light, what is government doing to ensure that insecurity is tackled, especially from the angle of taking people out of poverty?
Well, let me quickly say that I'm sure you may be aware recently we declared free and compulsory education for all people with disability, almajiris, and every child in Kano State now is entitled to have free education, primary and secondary. That's one way of trying to mitigate. Secondly, I just told you about the level of empowerment that is going on in Kano State, relentlessly, on virtually all directions. We can see, I think the truth is there on the ground. If there is this pressure on the young men, their brains bubble, probably they will not have been that peaceful. Like I said, the peace we are enjoying in Kano State is not by accident. It's a deliberate steps and actions taken by the state government, and I can beat my chest to say that in the history of Kano State, there has not been another 4 or 5 years when the state saw tremendous development and progress in virtually all directions. Just this year, we've declared, education and health as our priority. Last year in our budget, it was agriculture and youth empowerment. So we are taking every possible step to ensure that Kano State remains peaceful.
All right, Usman Alaji, Secretary to the Kano State Government, thank you very much indeed for talking to us this morning.
Thank you so much.
All right, we will talk about social media again when we come back in just a moment.
Dr. Kemi Omotubora joins us now to talk about the legal angle to all of the conversation about regulating or censoring the social media. So many countries have had their own ways of going around this, Dr. Omotubora. How should we be approaching it in the first place? Do we need another law, or do we have enough? What do you see happening when Nigeria talks about social media censorship or social media regulation?
Okay, thank you very much. Good morning, and thanks for inviting me. So, when we talk about regulating social media, I think, well, the government, let me just first of all say that governments that want to regulate social media, they don't like the use of the word censorship, because that has a negative connotation, you know, in terms of what they think they are trying to do. So,
what's the difference? What's the difference between regulating social media and censoring social media?
Yeah, I mean, I'm saying that from the perspective of the people who are going to be subject to regulation, this can be seen as censorship. So it depends on the side of the aisle that you are on. Government would not say, you know, they are censoring, they will say they are regulating. Whereas those who are at the receiving end of the regulation see that as suppressing, you know, speech, and including free speech, any type of speech sometimes, you know. So it depends on what side of the aisle you are. I doubt that the Honorable Minister would say, you know, we want to censor social media. That's where, that's why you hear him using words like regulating social media. And, you know, I'm happy that when he was making that point, you know, that bit that we listened to, he was saying about different aspects of how you can actually regulate this space. It doesn't have to be the top to bottom kind of throwing laws or legislation at everything, because that also has its, you know, its negative impact. For example, in Nigeria, I would say that we don't even understand the full, dimensions or the full connotations of fake news that we so much want to regulate, that we so much talk about. So the word is bandied around. Everyone says, you know, that is fake news. If it's news that they don't like, that is not favorable to them, to delegitimize the media or the news, they say, you know, fake news. It seems to be a response, you know, to every thing, every information that people don't like. And
okay, Dr. Motobora, could you tell us,
yes,
legally speaking, is there a need for this?
I would say no.
Okay, but how then?
I would say, let me just finish that point. Why I'm saying no. There are two reasons why, you know, I say categorical no. The first one I was making, you know, initially was that we don't understand the dimensions. If you ask people what fake news is, they are going to give you different and vague answers, you know, from, you know, news that does not favor them, to misleading news, to fabricated content, and all sorts of things. So, you know, you have that on the side. And the second is that this is becoming highly political. And it's not only in Nigeria, it's everywhere. And when an issue is political, you want to be careful about throwing legislation at it, because then, you know, the whole issue is one that revolves around emotions. People are very emotive about it. This is government trying, you know, to stifle free speech. This is a kind of surveillance system where government wants to watch everything that people do. So no matter how you try to then, you know, present this kind of regulatory regime, it doesn't sit well with people and is likely to be resisted.
Okay.
So that's problematic in itself, and that's why I said, you know, apart from the specific provisions themselves.
Yeah. Dr. Motobora, just one moment. What are the implications?
So apart from the specific, yes.
What are the implications? Should the federal government at various levels go ahead with this action, whether it's censorship or regulation? What are the implications on the citizens that the people need to know and maybe government needs to know before they go on?
So this was, I've mentioned part of that because we don't have a clear understanding of what we are even regulating, there's going to be some ambiguity around, you know, what is fake news and what are you regulating at all. And I said also that people don't have faith or confidence in a political, an issue that has become political.
Yeah, but Doctor, I understand that one.
Yeah, I'm going to that. Okay. Let me just make this final point. So okay. The other important aspect is how that regulation collides with freedom of expression that is a constitutionally guaranteed right. Okay, so because if, for example, you look at the Constitution, opinion is protected free speech under the Constitution and under the Universal Declaration of Human Rights. Ideas are protected free speech. So it doesn't have to be a fact. What you hold and what you disseminate does not have to be a fact. So going the route of, you know, regulating social media and talking about facts does tend to raise the bar. And it collides with these rights that are already guaranteed, that are not specific about, you know, protecting information that is true or that is a fact.
Okay, well, just one more thing on this one, because there are so many issues that to look at. So there are laws, the law of tort, law against libel, law against slander, and all of those things. Again, should the federal government go ahead with this, what laws or what rights beside the one that you just talked about, the rights to freedom of speech and all of that, what are the laws or the rights or the privileges of Nigerians that will be taken away should the government go ahead with this?
Yeah, so I've just mentioned the most important right, which is a fundamental right. That's the freedom of speech and freedom to disseminate information. And I said that provision of the Constitution, indeed, you know, the Universal Declaration of Human Rights actually protects, you know, expressions, speeches that are not facts. So if you look at it from that perspective, you know that this kind of regulation is heading on a collision with fundamental rights. So that's the most important aspect of it. The thought of defamation that we were talking about, this is, you know, is an exception to that, to that free speech. So you have the right to make all these comments. You have the right to your free speech and all that. But where your right now leads to injury or damage, where what you write or what you say affects another person prejudicially, causes them harm, damage, you know, injury, then, you know, your right is restrained in that way. The other person has a right to take action against you for defamation or under the defamation laws. So these are the things, but strictly speaking, in terms of the news regulation, what is at stake is actually the fundamental right of the individual that is being threatened. If the information is false, you can take action under defamation law and challenge that.
There are so many issues to look at under this, one of which is, so how do we police the social media without this kind of regulation? is there a need for it? But all of that we have to let go for now. We have to thank you very much. Dr. Kemi Omotubora is of the Faculty of Law, University of Lagos. She's an IT law expert. Thank you so much for your time and your thoughts.
Thank you for having me.
Okay.
This is Channels Television's Breaking News.
Well, yes, the breaking news is that the U.S. President and Republican candidate Donald Trump says he will be going to the Supreme Court to stop all vote counting. He's also claiming victory despite several states' results yet to be announced. And so that shows a lot in the works there as it turned out. So U.S. President and Republican candidate Donald Trump says he will be going to the Supreme Court to stop all vote counting.
That's beside the fact that there are so many states that are yet to, that their results are yet to come in.
But as things stand, I mean, they were changing so quick and fast. Even while we are there, a lot has changed in terms of who's got what from those results that you did.
It's actually quite interesting
because at some point in time.
Yeah, I mean, well,
yes, it's the closest. I mean, they're going neck and neck.
It's perhaps the tightest so far. Well, as at 8:43 this morning, the results shows, according to Associated Press, 225. Now it's 236 to Joe Biden and 213 to Donald Trump. So far, that is what we have. It just changed just this moment. That's how I was about to read it. So it's 236 to Joe Biden and 213 to Donald Trump, as at this moment, according to the Associated Press. So that's what we have for now. Whether or not the laws of the United States of America, one of the strongest democracies in the world, would allow that which the President of the United States of America has pronounced, whether the law permits it, I guess time will tell.
Wow. So this is the breaking news of Go For You today. I remember the last time that there was any similar, well, not similar, any court matter reference was, I think, George W. Bush Jr., while and Al Gore. That was a recent last time you heard about any such matter going to court. But I think Al Gore, they had to let it go, saying, look, the country is bigger than any of their personal, whatever it was at the time.
How will we be able to bring that same country is bigger, Nigeria first, if we can put it that way, into our light in our own?
This is, because earlier now, before now, he had said, the president had said, look, he wasn't thinking about any concession speech as of yet. And then there's been fences, I think they said barricades, non-scalable fence, they say, was erected around the White House recently. And so now you have this one. So this is going to be new. If he heads to court to say they stop all counting, why is it that? Does it mean that, look, it may not go his way? From what he's seeing, he thinks if it continues that way, could it be that things will definitely swing the other way?
That's the way it's going. But then it'll depend on two things. Number one, the laws of the land, and number two, the political leanings, if any, of the judges of the Supreme Court.
So there you go. That is what is playing out right now. Well, that is our show today. We thank you all for watching. We'll see you again tomorrow. I'm Chamberlain Uso.
And I'm Ayo Makinde. Have a wonderful day, and please keep safe.